In this market, it can be hard to know where to spend your comic book dollars. Values are generally down across the board, but while that's bad news for collectors looking for those quick flip dollars, it's brought a number of books back into play for collectors who are stocking their PCs or playing the long hold investment strategy. It's time to dive into another top 10 comics to invest in, this time for the fall of 2022. Let's get to the books. Kicking off the fall 2022 top 10 comics to invest in list is one of the modern era's best good girl art covers, Catwoman number 51. Published in March 2006, Catwoman 51 is a cover-driven book. Drawn by modern good girl art master Adam Hughes, the cover depicts a less than thrilled Selena Kyle posing for a mugshot at the Gotham City Police Department. I'm sure this wasn't the first and most likely wasn't the last time she found herself in such a position. Beneath the Hughes cover, we find a 22-page Will Pfeiffer story that was illustrated by Pete Woods. In the current market, a copy of this modern classic will set you back between $100 and $150 for a raw high-grade copy, while CGC 9.8 copies are running just over $300 when you look at the 90-day average. While this book is not a mega key by any means, it is one of those books that draws a lot of attention when you come across a copy because it's just that easy on the eyes. The forthcoming MCU Armor Wars project just got promoted from a Disney Plus show to being a full-blown MCU feature film. Disney Plus shows haven't really been moving the needle much lately, as the last several shows have received mixed responses from fans. With Armor Wars now moving forward as a movie, we may see some of the related books start to gain interest in the market. Our number 9 book, Iron Man 282, is one such book. Published in July 1992, Iron Man 282 is the first cover appearance of the War Machine armor. The Len Kaminski story, simply titled War Machine, was drawn by Kevin Hopegood, who also provided the cover art. This book has seen some slow months recently, as Armor Wars was flying well below the radar for most collectors. Sales have picked up quite a bit since the status change was announced, so we may well have found the bottom dollar value for this book in the current period, making it a solid buying opportunity at the moment. Currently, you can pick up high-grade raw copies of this book for $100, or maybe even a little bit less, while CGC 9.8 copies are averaging just $450 in the most recent 90 days, which is actually a drop of 10% when you look at the book's 12-month average sales price. Or if 9.8s aren't your thing, you can save about $300 by picking up a CGC 9.6 copy, as those are currently averaging a sales price of $167 over the most recent 90-day period. The 90s were an interesting time in comics. Small press publishers were still churning out a variety of stories following the indie boom times of the 1980s. One of my personal favorite oddities of this time frame is occupying the number 8 spot, Scud the Disposable Assassin number 1. Published by Fireman Press in February 1994, Scud is the creation of Rob Schrab. If that name is familiar to you, he is a co-creator of Comedy Central's The Sarah Silverman program, and he even won an Emmy Award in 2020 as a producer on Rick and Morty. But before all of that, there was Scud. In Scud's world, people can hit up vending machines to purchase a robot assassin that self-destructs once it has completed the programmed hit. Scud was a favorite of Wizard magazine back when it was released, regularly appearing in the magazine's Hot 10 list at the time. High-grade copies of Scud 1 can be rather tough to find, but if you can track one down, expect to pay north of $150 for it. While slabbed copies are few and far between, there's only been 22 sales in the last 12 months. A CGC 9.8 sold in September 2022 for just under $900 after averaging only $522 in 2021. At a minimum, Scud is just a fun 90s book to add to your collection. If the property ever gets picked up, it could also be a tough to find and valuable indie book that's resting comfortably in your PC. If we're just meeting, my name is Drew Stewart and I'm the owner of Como Comic Books. Here on the channel, we talk about comic book collecting and focus on back issues ranging from the golden to copper ages primarily. If you're interested in the comic book collecting hobby or are getting value out of the videos so far, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. The biggest nugget of news to come from a recent week of substantial MCU updates was that Hugh Jackman would be reprising the role of Wolverine in Deadpool 3. But the main takeaway here is Deadpool is back in the news. After having been left out of sight and out of mind for some time now, our number 7 book, New Mutants 98, had been steadily decreasing in value. This drop is beginning to turn around and collectors are reminded that Deadpool is in fact going to come to the MCU. Published in February 1991, New Mutants 98, the first appearance of Deadpool, is starting to climb back out of the basement. With a Fabian Nicieza story and art from Rob Liefeld, New Mutants 98 is one of the most plentiful modern keys out there. Prior to the announcement, raw copies were selling regularly between $300 and $350. Today, $350 is the lowest I'm seeing copies go for, while many sales are in the $400+ range. Slab prices aren't recovering quite as quickly, as most grades are still seeing a decline in the 90-day average sales price. CGC 9.6 copies are holding right around the $600 range, over 77 sales in the last 90 days, while CGC 9.8s are averaging $1,586 in the last 90 days, but the last 3 sales have been $1,700, $1,800, and $2,000 respectively, indicating that if the trend holds, the 90-day average is going to start climbing very shortly. Okay, I'm going to bend the rules a little bit for this one. Our number 6 book is not a comic book, but it is the self-professed guide to comics. Coming in at number 6 is Wizard Magazine number 1. Published in September 1991, Wizard was a long-running comic magazine that, prior to the internet, was one of the primary sources of comic book-related news and entertainment. As if being the number 1 issue of a popular magazine series that ran from 1991 to 2011 wasn't enough, the publisher actually went all in with the premiere issue and commissioned Todd McFarlane to provide the cover art, which featured Spider-Man in the garb of a wizard. This book is difficult to find in high grade. Values for truly high grade, meaning like 9.0 and up copies, bring strong prices and can sell for anywhere from $100 to $200 depending on just how high grade of a copy is up for sale. In September 2022, a CGC 9.0 copy sold for $400, while in July 2022, a CGC 9.6 copy sold for $760, which was actually a sizable drop from the 12-month average price of $1,087. Wizard 1 is a book that will appeal to collectors of a certain age who fondly remember picking up the latest edition of the magazine alongside our comics each month. From articles, interviews, previews, mail-aways, the price guide, and more, there was always something for everyone in Wizard every month, and the nostalgia for this title will likely continue to drive interest in this book for years to come. Cracking the top half of the list is a Bronze Age key that's got some teeth. Coming in the number 5 spot is Iron Fist number 14. Published in August 1977, the Dave Cockrum, John Byrne, and Chris Claremont produced Iron Fist 14 is the first appearance of longtime Wolverine nemesis Sabretooth. Sabretooth would actually spend his first several appearances facing off against Iron Fist and later the Heroes for Hire before the rivalry between the character and Wolverine was written into Marvel canon. With the recent price corrections impacting the market, Iron Fist 14 has dipped back down to the point that everyday collectors may find it within reach once again at this new lower price point. CGC 6.0 copies are averaging sales prices below $300 over the last 90 days, while CGC 9.2 copies are down nearly 30% to just $730 when you compare the current 90-day moving average to the 12-month average sales price. While that's still a decent chunk of change, there's a clear opportunity to pick up one of the Bronze Age's more desirable villain first appearances at prices that are better than what we've seen in some time. One of the most fun series I've read in the last 10 to 15 years is also one of the weirdest titles I've ever read, but that's not stopping it from taking a bite out of our number 4 spot. Let's talk about Chew number 1. Published in June 2009, Chew comes from the creative but slightly disturbed minds of writer John Layman and series artist Rob Guillory. Truth be told, I can't imagine the story working from any other artist. Guillory's art was just the absolute perfect choice. Going through a total of 4 printings, Chew found success in the renaissance of Image Comics in the late 2000s alongside other titles such as The Walking Dead. CGC 9.8 copies are down about 24% compared to the 2021 average of $423, with the current 90-day average sales price coming in at $306. Though if 9.8s aren't that important to you, the downward pressure on prices continues below 9.8, where a CGC 9.6 copy just sold for $124 earlier this month. The sad truth is that 9.6 slabs are likely to cost you less than you'd pay for a raw high-grade copy in the current market. Whichever kind you decide to track down, I encourage you to grab a copy of the first trade paperback and give this story a read. I promise you it will be all kinds of weird, but a whole lot of fun too. There's something weird going on with our number 3 book. It's the most obvious book to lean into looking at the upcoming MCU slate, but values are flat or coming down in most grades right now. Declaring its sovereignty over the number 3 spot is Avengers number 8, the first appearance of Kang the Conqueror. Published in September 1964, Avengers 8 is one of the many fantastic Silver Age Marvel issues produced by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. So here's what we know. Kang will be the villain of Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, and that's scheduled to release on February 17th, 2023. In summer 2023, Loki Season 2 is expected to be released on Disney+, and a variant of Kang, along with a conqueror-looking statue, were seen in the season finale of Loki Season 1. Then, on May 2nd, 2025, a movie called Avengers: The Kang Dynasty is set to come out. That adds up to 3 major MCU projects in the next 2.5 years that will be Kang-centric, and despite all of that, Avengers 8 is either stalled out or slipping backwards. I can't help but think about the trajectory of Iron Man 55 a decade ago, when Thanos was first being teased and revealed as being the overarching bad guy for the original saga of the MCU, the Infinity Saga. While there's no doubt that we're in a different time in the market today, and we're dealing with a single-digit issue of a classic Silver Age Marvel title, logic would suggest that Avengers 8 should see an increase in demand and correspondingly in value as Kang is further established within the MCU, making these current prices on Avengers 8 eye-catching. Across a number of grades, GPA indicates that several of the most recent sales are at or near year-to-date lows in grade. For instance, a CGC 4.0 copy sold on September 18th for $710. This is the lowest of any sale in grade this year and nearly 30% below the current 90-day average sales price. We see a similar tale at the 8.0 grade, where the most recent sale on September 25th for $2,640 is a year-to-date low by more than $800 below the previous year-to-date low sale, and against a 90-day average sales price of $3,537. There are some definite opportunities for this book in the lower grades, and if you have a $500 to $1,000 budget and a little bit of patience right now, this is a book that I would take a serious look at. The runner-up is a book that has majorly corrected from its 2021 highs and has crossed back into attainable territory for most collectors. In the number 2 spot is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Adventures number 1. Published in August 1988, TMNT Adventures #1 may not have been the first appearance of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but it's the first appearance of many things that young TMNT fans from the late 80s and early 1990s associate with the Turtles. It's the first time the Turtles have their 4 different colored masks. In the original comics, remember, they all wore red masks. A number of iconic TMNT villains also make their debuts in this issue. That's right, Rocksteady, Bebop, and Krang did not exist in the TMNT comic book universe prior to this issue. Co-creators Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird provided the cover, while under the cover it was The Michael Dooney Show. Dooney adapted the story from the David Wise and Patty Lowath script and also drew the interior art. Raw, high-grade copies appear to be few and far between right now, but recent sales for raw copies on eBay show that mid-grade copies are regularly going for $50 to $75, even for newsstand and Canadian price variants. Shifting over to slab sales, 9.8 copies are averaging just $455 across 8 sales in the last 90 days. CGC 9.6 copies have actually fallen below $200 on average, and that's over 18 sales in the most recent 90-day period. For perspective, the 2021 average sales price of a 9.8 was nearly $1,000 at $987 across 59 different sales. If this one got away from you during the 2020 and 2021 boom, I'm happy to report that this little part of your childhood is attainable for a reasonable price once again. For the next installment of Obvious Keys the Market is Currently Ignoring, I present the #1 book on the Fall 2022 Top 10 Comics to Invest In list, Thor 165. Published in June 1969, him, who would later be known as Adam Warlock, makes his first full appearance after a series of cameos in both the Fantastic Four and Thor issues. Another Stan Lee and Jack Kirby collaboration. It's mind-boggling just how much of the Marvel Universe these two guys created in less than a decade, from 1961 to 1970, and that's when Kirby left to go to DC. Following the usual cycle, books get hot when it's revealed far in advance that a major character will be debuting in some upcoming MCU project. Then, since pretty much everybody is starting to show up in an MCU project of some sort, the market goes nearsighted and just starts focusing on what's immediately in front of it, leaving these future projects out in the cold. That's where we're at with Thor 165 right now. In addition to the general downturn in values we're seeing, Guardians of the Galaxy 3, the film in which Warlock will premiere, will be released just over 6 months from when this video is going to be uploaded, but it's actually the 3rd MCU feature down the line behind Wakanda Forever and Quantum Mania. Looking at current values, you can pick up a CGC 7.0 copy for under $600 right now, which is a good value for a book with a 12-month average sales price that's north of $800. In fact, 90-day average sales prices for this book are down across the board, with the sole exception of a one-off sale for a 9.4 that sold for $10,000 in September 2022. With its primarily black cover, high-grade copies of this book command noticeably higher prices, as that sale shows. However, if you drop down to 8.5, it's actually seen a 52% drop in value when comparing the current 90-day average sales price to the 12-month average sales price, with the longer-term value reflecting $1,974. The last sale and only sale in the last 90 days sold for just $956. It's more than a $1,000 drop. There's a lot of price compression in the lower grades as well, as the range of values for CGC 2.5s to 6.0s is just $163 to $380 looking at the current 90-day average sales prices. That means you can get a lot of bang for your buck grade-wise on this late Silver Age first appearance. Times are tough out there right now, and if you're like me, you're seeing it all around. Negativity is currently oozing through the wider comic community, and there seems to be a faction within the hobby that want to do nothing but tear others down. We can do better. The hobby is supposed to be our escape from the stress and ugliness of the real world, but it's up to us to protect the culture of the collecting hobby. There is no doubt there have been mistakes made. Some out in the open, some in the shadows, but we need to get back to a point where we can assume positive intent with each other. Let's put down the pitchforks and the torches and bring some positivity back to the community. Let's celebrate successes, congratulate other collectors when they pick up something they're excited about, be encouraging, answer questions you see in a helpful manner. We've got to remember that not everybody in the hobby today has been collecting for 5, 10, 20, 30, or even more years. The hobby is supposed to be fun, and let's make sure we keep it that way. Happy hunting out there, and don't forget to collect responsibly. I'll see you in the next one.